said, my name is Preston McNair. I'm one of the founders here at ClearlyIP and currently Chief Revenue Officer, which is just a fancy title, meaning I work a little with sales, a little with marketing, a little with product management and direction and so forth to kind of help drive revenues into our company. So Tony Lewis, our CEO, is also with me today, and he'll be doing some live demonstrations after I give a quick overview of our new product offering. So thanks for taking the time to join us today to learn about our latest product release, CodeX. We hope that this new solution will be a great addition to your existing options for deploying VoIP solutions into your workspace. Today's presentation is designed for a general audience, so there are both partners and end users that have signed up for the session. So any pricing we talk about today will be at MSRP price levels. So if you're a partner and want to know more about your pricing and promotions on CodeX, please reach out to your account manager or me directly. You can always ask any questions you may have using the question section on the webinar control panel. We are recording this session and will make it available to attendees most likely tomorrow. So what exactly is CodeX? CodeX is an emergency notification and management add-on for FreePBX-based phone systems. The way we came up with the name is if you think about emergency code statuses you see in the movies, the news, and elsewhere, we think of things like code yellow, code red, code blue, and so on. So since this add-on is designed to be very configurable, we've used the name CodeX, kind of like a variable. So as you can define the urgency of any specific emergency event that you're building a responsive template for. So CodeX is engineered as an add-on to work with both FreePBX-based solutions and our Business Connect on-premise and hosted product offerings. So you can use this as an add-on for an appliance you purchased from us or a compatible system you've installed yourself, or as an additional feature on our Business Connect solution if you're using either our on-premise or hosted Business Connect platform today. So CodeX allows you to automate and manage the ability to communicate concise emergency announcements and action messages across every corner of a campus or business location. So CodeX also implements a check-in application where individual locations, be it classrooms or offices, can securely report back their status, which can be monitored from the CodeX dashboard in the user control panel and relayed back to incident management or first responders as needed. CodeX was designed to help school systems and has initially been deployed in the education vertical. However, you can likely find a good fit for the solution with other government agencies, enterprises, and institutions that may need to communicate quickly in an emergency. So why do organizations need CodeX? So I'm going to hit on some of the features of CodeX, and Tony will do the live demo in just a minute to go in more depth. First, CodeX provides a dashboard that allows administrators to quickly send out pre-recorded announcements across their campuses. So classrooms and offices can then report back on their status, allowing a quick view of each location's status being monitored. So this can be valuable for directing first responders or establishing timelines during an emergency. So during an emergency, the last thing you want to cause is panic. So by pre-recording the announcements, the administrator can choose which notifications to send and not worry about how it sounds or delivering a clear message under pressure. So before we dig very deep into how CodeX works, let's cover emergency management and planning basics. So CodeX was designed, as I said, originally as a custom development solution for a school system in California. Although designed for schools, as I said, it can be deployed in many different types of businesses. So for the purposes of this presentation, we're going to focus on education in our examples, but you'll see CodeX could definitely be a valuable asset to emergency planners across many different types of businesses. So in a crisis, seconds matter. Being able to communicate simple commands during an emergency quickly can mean the difference between life and death. So emergency planning and management is its own discipline. I suspect that not many of you on the call today are experts in emergency risk management. However, although if you're in school technology, this is becoming a big requirement for this space. You'll likely be needing to know how to fit communications into a school's emergency plan. So diving into emergency planning can be a rabbit hole with multiple options, theories about best practices. So we're going to cover some basics of emergency planning. There are thousands of resources of this stuff online, so I'm only going to try and touch on the pieces that may be relevant in your role as a telecommunications manager or provider. So emergency preparedness means having a system to prevent, prepare, respond, and recover from emergencies caused by natural disasters or man-made events such as violent incidents. So if you look at the thousands of examples online of segmenting emergency planning, Most plans segment your activities into 4 components. That's going to be mitigate or prevent, prepare, respond, and recover. So CodeX is going to fall into the prepare and respond components of emergency planning. You'll be assisting in the preparations of communications plans before an emergency situation, so that when an emergency happens, an almost automated response mechanism is set off to help protect life and property. Not currently a part of the specific CodeX product feature set is the mitigate and prevent quadrants of emergency planning. So things in this section are things that I know many of you are likely implementing today, things like access control or visitor management systems. I've also seen quite a few customers installing health and wellness monitoring systems to check temperature and such in the wake of the pandemic. So CodeX does none of this today, but it's an excellent solution to complement those technologies. So we have a couple of solutions that we launched earlier this year that I don't think we've done a great job of talking about that fall into this prevent and mitigate category. So these are going to be our silent intercom and panic button hardware. So briefly, as I stated before, in a crisis, seconds matter. So by combining CodeX with the ClearlyIP panic button, your education telecom solutions begin to more look like a total, emergency preparation solution. So this button connects to a ClearlyIP phone and instantly dials a designated destination when pressed and plays a pre-recorded message to the recipients. After the message is played, the phone's microphone is set to transmit only, allowing the recipients to hear anything happening around the phone. So most importantly, this is all done without any indication that the phone is on or connected to a call. The panic button is compatible with our ClearlyIP 250 and 270 models. In addition to the panic button, ClearlyIP phones also support a silent intercom functionality. So silent intercom allows school administrators to activate a ClearlyIP desk phone and enable the microphone remotely. So this is done without any lights or notifications on the phone itself, allowing school staff to remotely monitor situations status in a classroom. This functionality can also be mapped to a speed dial on the phones themselves, enabling a discrete panic button type experience option using the speed dial buttons on the phone. So going back to developing an emergency plan, moving on to the prepare quadrant. Preparedness helps mitigate the potential for emergencies to become disasters. So there's a massive difference between emergency and disaster in the framework of response and recovery. So an emergency is an event that can be responded to using available resources, whether that be local school administration, resource officers, school nurses, or local law enforcement. On the other hand, a disaster is characterized by impacts that overwhelm the local responders' capacities and place demands on resources that are not available locally. So CodeX is designed to help enable quick, concise communications during an emergency and provide timely information to the administration and first responders to help prevent emergencies from becoming disasters. So a big piece of emergency planning is the planning part. You can't fly by the seat of your pants with this stuff. Schools must prepare and practice protective actions for life safety. Plans should define each hazard's most appropriate protective action to ensure employees and students' safety, as well as others in the building. So determine how you're going to warn building occupants to take protective action. So CodeX is perfect for this. So developing protocols and procedures to alert first responders, including public emergency services, trained employees, like nurses that know CPR and so forth, and of course property management. So identify how you're going to communicate with management and employees during and following an emergency. I mean, you don't want 200 classrooms calling 911 at the same time. As the person managing the telephone system, this typically or historically isn't in your scope to plan and cover, but with various legal requirements coming into effect, such as Kerry's Law or the Brabham Act, and depending on your location, some schools, at least in 2 states already, are required to follow Alyssa's law, which is a requirement in that states that schools must deploy panic buttons with direct access to first responders. So there are areas where you're going to need to be involved and not only help ensure that the phone systems you're managing and deploying are legal and meet the requirements of these new laws, but are also implementing the best safety measures available. So after you've planned and prepared, next comes the action when an emergency happens. So 15 seconds after a school principal is notified of an emergent circumstance should not be the first time student bodies and teachers hear any type of lockdown notification. So administrators should conduct evacuation, sheltering in place, hold in place, and lockdown drills so that the employees, students, and visitors will recognize the sounds and alerts used to warn them. And they'll know what to do. As a telecom manager, you'll want to work with the school to define options and procedures for implementing and testing and practicing these plans and procedures. Ensure your personnel are familiar with the program and identify any gaps or deficiencies of the system or your configuration during testing. So when it comes time to respond to a threat or incident, everyone knows what to do and how to respond. From an end user or school administrator point of view, we can create specific CodeX automated responses directly within your phone system's PBX administration options. Your end users and staff don't have to see that part. You can do it for them, but we'll show you what that looks like live in a minute. But as an example, you can have a specific code designed for use in an environmental emergency where your announcement alerts everyone to shelter in place, turn off the HVAC system, close windows, seal the classrooms, and so on. You can also have a code just for lockdown scenarios. You have a lot of freedom to build various entries to fit your specific emergency plans. The incident in mind when initially developing CodeX was the lockdown scenario, and this is typically the primary driver of inquiries we see in the education space. Outside of recent demand driven by the pandemic, with schools needing to enable flexible work from home solution for their teachers and administrators, we're also seeing a lot of school RFPs coming in from partners that are requiring communication solutions for the lockdown scenario. Active violence in a school, a religious gathering or the workplace could occur without warning, and fortunately has and does. One thing to note here is that just because this is kind of a large driver of why we built CodeX and some recent purchasing behavior in the education space, we're not trying to monopolize or sell on the fear of active shooters. We've also asked our partners not to go this direction when marketing these solutions. We're attempting to provide a valuable solution to expand on your school's new and existing phone system capabilities to cover a need. We're not chasing ambulances or trying to publicize any particular incident for monetary gain. CodeX wasn't even on our roadmap until we were reached out by a school system that needed to implement a solution like this in their emergency plan. With that in mind, lockdown's primary goal is to quickly take actions within the school building to protect students and others from harm. The ultimate objective is to secure and account for all students, staff members, and visitors, and coordinate with law enforcement. So step by step from an end user perspective, let's say an administrator or school principal determines that there's a cause for a lockdown. Maybe someone hit a panic button or made a call to 911 that was using the ClearlyIP trunking platform, which immediately notified them of the 911 call and the location. So that administrator can then quickly put the power of CodeX to work in their emergency response. The principal will dial a predetermined code or extension number to implement a response. I recommend you make these codes easy to remember or spell something out on the phone keypad. For example, 5626 spells lock on the keypad, or 4653 spells hold, and so on. Once the call is placed, they would then enter a PIN code to start the CodeX event on the PBX. CodeX events can even be started at the click of a button from directly within the user control panel. So when delivering the lockdown message, the PBX will automatically page that out for your specific event. So it's important to use clear, concise, plain language for the instructions so that even visitors, substitute teachers, or those who may have never been in a previous drill or exercise are aware of exactly what they need to do. For example, for a lockdown message, you can say something like, attention, the school's now in full lockdown. Lock and block your rooms, turn off all your lights, immediately clear restroom and hallways to the closest safe location. If outside, please run to a safe off-campus location. Students, stay off your phones, stay silent. Staff, please report your room status with your predefined code. Simple and to the point. So once the lockdown message is delivered, since this is automated, the school principal or administrator or their designate can immediately jump on a call with 911 or whatever the emergency number may be in your region. They or whoever is assigned during the planning phases as incident commander can view the CodeX application to view any reported statuses of each defined location. Is a room marked safe? Are they marked unsafe? Have they not reported in? They can also resend announcements and manually mark areas safe or unsafe using the application. all while communicating and coordinating updates directly with first responders, accomplishing the goals and objectives of a lockdown with the tools provided by CodeX. Additionally, administrators can, post-incident review reports to assist in the recovery of the situation and learn things they could do better next time, or find areas for improvement during drills and exercises. So now to get a bit technical, CodeX is designed for FreePBX-based systems. To deploy it, you'll need either to set them up with a Business Connect system, on-premise or hybrid hosted service from ClearlyIP, a ClearlyIP appliance, or reach out to one of our partners that's integrated this into the product offerings. We have a partner finder on our website if you're looking for a partner in your area. And of course, if you're deploying FreePBX-based distributions utilizing version 14 and above, you should be able to install and license CodeX directly. Once you have a system to install it on, you want to go through the PBX 101 stuff of configuring and adding extensions to the PBX. Get all your extensions set up, and planning out your extension ranges to make it easier to know what type of extension is calling you without committing names to memory. For example, maybe try to include classroom numbers in part of your extension, and so on. Then if you're using ClearlyIP phones, you can map your phones to your extensions on the PBX. CodeX should work with any phone that supports paging within FreePBX. But if you're using ClearlyIP phones, the silent intercom options and panic button add-on functionality will only work with ClearlyIP-based phones. These features will not work with other brands. So once your phones are mapped to extensions, you can quickly mass import those devices into the ClearlyIP redirection service, which will then point the phones to register your PBX that you're deploying them on. Once you've done that, plug in your ClearlyIP phones. They should auto-provision with their assigned extensions and register to the PBX. You can also consider licensing and deploying Clearly Anywhere seats to school administrators or mobile staff, like PE teachers that may be out on a ball field or track during the day, or teachers that may be on a field trip. This allows them to communicate with administrators, and you can even pre-program some of the CodeX event codes or the auto responses to auto-populate in the quick dial section of our mobile applications. If you're using Business Connect or deploying ClearlyIP SIP trunking on your systems, you can also quickly get connected and auto-configure inbound and outbound calling with a click of a button in the Clearly trunking module. But more importantly, in the area of emergency preparedness, you can assign E911 callback profiles and dispatchable locations to the individual extensions on your system, which should also be a part of any emergency plan. And by the way, is of course a requirement of the Raybaum Act and Kerry's Law. Emergency notifications can also be sent by SMS and email, and even a live paging / barge call scenario to a front desk or administrator. This allows management to stay in the loop on any emergencies being reported to the phone system on campus. This allows for quicker lockdowns or actions when there are emergencies on campus. So once you have your extensions and devices set up, you can create paging groups. These groups can include individual classroom phones, overhead paging devices, and so forth. You can create groups for the entire campus or segment it out as it makes sense based on geography and or event types that you might be wanting to cover. So as you work to define what type of CodeX notifications and groups you'll need to create to manage your emergency events, you'll want to prepare your recordings, your sound prompts, and announcements for each type of event with specific instructions based on the event type. So you might have a recording for a lockdown or a different recording for a hold in place or shelter in place. So you want to define as many options as possible so that you give your administrators choices in emergency responses that are appropriate. So when you have your page groups and your announcements recorded, you can then begin building your CodeX codes and notification groups. So you do this by setting up the extension for each specific type of CodeX event. So mapping the specific page group you wish to notify. You can also define things like check-in time limits and the specific sound prompts and announcements you want to be played. This is where you really get into the guts of what you're going to be playing during your live emergency events. Now that you have your CodeX codes, groups, and announcements set up, you'll want to use the user management module to enable CodeX for your authorized users and assign and enable specific CodeX codes to them. So this will allow them to activate CodeX events directly from a user control panel widget, which Tony will show you in a minute or so. You're now ready to deploy CodeX to your customers. It's pretty simple to set up and get going. Definitely will take some planning to deploy them. So how much does it cost? If you deploy this on a FreePBX-based appliance or system, the MSRP pricing is $1,800 a year. That breaks down to about $10 a day for an average 180-day school year. Partners get significant discounts on the module, so you can contact your account manager directly to get the specifics of any discounts of your partner. If you deploy our Business Connect services to on one of your systems, you can get CodeX bundled in as a monthly rate as low as $100 per month with a 36-month commitment. So that's something that we like to make it as easy as possible to buy into this solution. You can purchase CodeX today in our online store, or you can request a quote from your dedicated account manager of your partner, or you can hit our chat online and speak with sales as well. Once you have purchased the license, you're going to be sent a link to install the ClearlyIP license module in your PBX. This module kind of generates a unique hardware key, which then allows you to install the CodeX module on the PBX and let you configure the system like we just reviewed, and then implement, test, educate, practice, and practice some more on the actual deployment scenarios and testing. And then, honestly, hopefully never need to use the module. I can say this is the first module that we've ever built for FreePBX that we hope really doesn't get used much. Of course, if you're deploying in the education space, you probably already know you've got some requirements for this type of functionality, and discuss it with your administrators or give us a call, and we'll be glad to review the features directly with them as well. That being said, I'm going to hand this off over to Tony Lewis to provide a live demonstration.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Tony with ClearlyIP. Just give me a second to get my screen sharing set up. Okay, you should be able to see my screen at this point. So what we're showing here is just a FreePBX based phone system, whether it's FreePBX or Business Connect or PBX from Sangoma, doesn't matter. They're all based on the same code base. And we've got our CodeX module installed right through the normal FreePBX module admin where you can upload the module. And once installed, we can navigate over to Applications CodeX. And here's where we can start managing our different codexes we'd want to create. So I've got one already created called test. We'll go edit that and take a look at it. And this codex is set up with extension 8009. So it's set up, if we dial 8009, that's how we'd initiate starting or stopping the codex. We can give it a description or a name. And then we link it to a page group on your PBX. So you get a drop down of all the different page groups you have created, and you pick which page group you want this linked to. And then it's going to pull all the users in from that page group as far as who are members of this codex that have to check in or safe or unsafe, and also page those phones anytime a codex is started. And then we set a check-in limit. How long do the people have to check in before this active running codex expires? And it's in seconds, so 300 seconds would be 5 minutes. So in the event that we started this codex, there'd be a 5-minute window for users to be able to check in. And then we can optionally set, and we highly recommend it, a start password and a cancel or stop password. So if I were to dial 8009 right now to start it, it's going to prompt me to enter the password to be able to start it. And if I want to stop an active running codex by dialing 8009, it's going to prompt me to enter a password. And you can set those to be whatever you want. And then we get 2 different announcements we can pick from. And these are just normal system recordings on your FreePBX-based system. So the first one is when we start a codex, what announcement goes out? And I've created an announcement called Codex Notification. And this is just a normal system recording. And then in the event that somebody initiates a resend the announcement on an active running CodeX, you can pick what announcement gets played. And it could be the same announcement, so I could set it to the same one, or you could have a different announcement. And that announcement might be just reminder, we're still in an active code blue, we're still waiting, if you haven't called in and checked in yet, please check in. So you get to pick if you want it to be the same announcement or a different announcement. And then we get our codes to check in safe or unsafe. So one of the ways to check in is by dialing a feature code. The check-in safe feature code is *61. So you would dial *61 plus the extension number of 8009 for this CodeX here. So to check in safe, I would dial *61 8009. And of course, you could program this as a button on your phone, like a speed dial. And then same to check in unsafe. I would dial *62 and then the CodeX I want to check in unsafe on. When I check in safe, it's going to prompt me and say, extension 101 has checked in safe. If I check in unsafe, it's just going to dial that feature code and hang up, because we don't want to play to the whole room that you just checked in unsafe. You may have a button programmed on the phone that you just want to hit it. It's just going to call that and then hang up the call. And then we get options. Let's say somebody dials the check-in safe code, and it's after that time limit of 300 seconds, so the active running CodeX is expired. What do we do with that call if they were to call the *61 8009? We've just set it up to hang up the call. Terminate the call and hang up. You could send this to an announcement if you wanted, and that announcement could play, sorry, there's no running CodeX at this time, or whatever you want to do. You could send it to a ring group and answer the call in case you want to know why somebody was dialing that feature code. So you decide where to route those if they try to dial safe or unsafe when a CodeX is not actively running. But they dial that *61 8009 or *62 8009. So once we have the code set up, we can start this numerous ways. So one way to start the active CodeX is just dialing 8009. So I'll go over to a phone here.
Welcome to the CodeX system. Please enter your password, followed by the pound key.
So we're going to put our password in.
The CodeX 48009. Press 1. The CodeX.
And now it's starting the page.
This is a CodeX. Please check in. This is a CodeX. Please check in.
So it's initiated the page to all the phones that are part of this CodeX, and now it's starting the 300-second timer. I can go up to any phone and check in safe or unsafe. So we're going to check in safe, *61 8009.
One, 0, 0, 1. This extension has been logged as safe.
So now I'm logged in as safe on this. And if we go in and we want to see what's happening, end users can have access to the user control panel to see active running CodeXs. So in FreePBX, we're going to go over to user control panel. And we're going to see now, I've got a widget set up for that test 8009. And I can see the safe and unsafe code. It's running. Who started it? How many users are part of it? How many have checked in safe and unsafe? So we can see over here, 1001 is checked in safe. We dialed that on our phone. 1000 hasn't checked in yet. So we know we may have to go investigate why is a classroom 1000 not checking in. As an admin, I can also change the statuses from here. So I could come in here and say, okay, we've cleared that room manually and let's mark it as safe. Or no, it's actually unsafe now as the data changes. So I have the ability to move or to change these statuses real time. A user could also call back in. Let's say I checked in safe the first time and now it's no longer safe. I could dial *62 8009. And now we'll see it went to unsafe. So they can change their status real time if they need to also. If I want to stop an active running CodeX, I can stop it early. Notice it started at 128. It's going to expire at 133. Make this a little bigger. And then we get that resend button. This is the, it'll resend the second announcement as like a reminder. So if we click this, it's going to go out and send a reminder notification out.
Is that CodeX reminder? Is that CodeX reminder?
And then lastly, we kind of get a reporting mechanism. So over here on the right, there's another widget called Reports for the Test 8009. And we can see all past run events. So if I pick a random event here, I can see who started it, what time it started at, how did it stop? Oh, I shouldn't have pushed that button, sorry. How did it stop? It expired. And what time did it stop at? And then I can see the status of everyone. So who was safe, who wasn't safe, what time they checked in at. I can see a quick recap here, 2 users, 1 safe, 1 unsafe. So if we go stop this one, and we refresh on our screen, we should see this active report now. Here we go. And we can see they're both unsafe. And it was stopped manually by Mike Smith, and what time it was stopped at. So again, if I had multiple codexes set up, I could add widgets for each of those. So I could say everything's permissionable. So I could say these users are allowed to see these codexes only from UCP. So you have full control over what they see, just like anything else in FreePBX for permission system. So that's the recap of the live demo. I think the only other thing I would add is we get people that ask a lot, can I create speed dials to do things like start and stop a code, or mainly start a codex? And the answer is yes. So to start a codex, we dial 8009, and then we got to enter our password, and then we have to enter 1 to start it. Well, for example, with ClearlyIP phones, we can create a speed dial that would be 8009, and then we'd add a pause of a second or two, then tell it to enter 1, 2, 3, 4, which was our password, then add a 1-second pause and enter 1 to start it. And now I have a speed dial. I can just click that button on my phone to automatically start off and kick off that codex. Same with check-in. If you wanted, you could provide a speed dial for checking in on the phone. So you could you could set up a speed dial to be *618009 that automatically checks them in. So at this point, we'll open up for Q&A. There's a Q&A section in your webinar, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. Okay, so we have a question here. If I have lots of different school buildings and each one has its own PBX, do I have to license it on each PBX? You would have to license it on each PBX you want to run it on. We do offer flexible licensing terms, meaning we can provide a license that would cover all your locations without having to pay for every location. I mean, you're not going to get it. You're not going to have to pay just for one location. You'll have to pay more than just a single location. But let's say you had 100 locations and you needed to put on all 100. We wouldn't make you buy 100 licenses. We'd offer an organization level license that would cover all your PBXs. Quiet crowd so far. Any other questions? Preston, you have anything else to add? Oh, how long to implement? I'm not sure what you mean by implement. Setup is really quick. As far as how long it takes to generate a license and stuff, it's pretty simple. You make your purchase. You get us back the hardware ID of your box, which you get through a module. So there's a module we have called license information under reports. You just click on that and you tell us what this hardware ID is, and then we send you a license file that you put on your PBX and you're done. I'm not sure if I answered that right, Michael, or if there was something else you were asking. Okay. Are you going to offer a small business plan, like if the office has less than 10 extensions? No, not this time. This isn't designed for that type of stuff. There's no way for us to limit how many extensions because it just ties to a page group, and There's no ability for us to actually know any of that. So this is really designed for enterprise space, or enterprise or government space. People that have 50, 100, 500 extensions that they really need to handle. If you're in a 10 extension building, you're in a pretty small building, you're going to know if you have an emergency or not just by looking over, at least in my head. So at this time it's not designed for like a small business type environment.
We do offer some plans if you're using our Business Connect service though, where we do some monthly options for that, but it's still not you can talk to us about that pricing if that makes sense.
Yeah, this isn't designed for a $50-$100 add-on. There's a lot of things that have to go into making sure that this is always working. It's mission critical for people, so it's really designed in that enterprise space. Okay, well, I think that's it for questions, Preston.
Yep. So this webinar we have recorded and it will be on our YouTube channel probably in the next day or so. We'll share out a link to that to everyone that's attended. So by all means, jump on that, subscribe, like, and of course, check out the other videos that we've got online there as well. If you're interested in purchasing, reach out to sales or to an existing partner. Partner Finder is on our website, and we'll be glad to talk to you in more detail. Thanks for attending today.
Thank you, everyone.